Crises don't begin with explosions. They begin with warnings ignored. Warnings about a narrow stretch of water only 21 miles wide, a corridor that normally moves nearly 20 million barrels of oil every single day. We stood here in November 2025 and told you, the Strait of Hormuz is the king's throat. One spark, and everything bends. We stood here again on January 26, 2026, and told you, Iran's economy was already cracking at 42% inflation. Uncertainty alone would move oil. Some listened, some did not. On February 28, 2026, the spark came. Operation Epic Fury, 900 strikes in 12 hours. US and Israeli forces decapitated the regime. Ali Khamenei is dead. Mujtaba Khamenei is now supreme leader. The shadow war is over. The real war has begun. And the artery is still bleeding. Weeks later, this is not some border clash. This is regime decapitation, happening in real time. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed it on March 13th. Iran's ballistic missile production capacity has been functionally defeated. 90% drop in launches, drones down 95%. Natanz hit again. Then came the strike that actually changed everything. March 13th to 14th, US forces hammered Karg Island, Iran's main oil export terminal. The place that handles 90% of their shipments. Over 90 military targets totally obliterated, Trump said. Oil loading facilities spared for now, but he made it crystal clear. If the strait stays closed, they're next. Iran hit back hard, and everywhere. Hundreds of ballistic missiles, over 2,000 drones since February 28th. Direct strikes on Israel, US bases in Iraq and Syria. And then the spillover nobody saw coming. Fujairah oil hub in the UAE on fire. Drones over Saudi Arabia's Sheba field. 14 hostile drones shot down over Kuwait. Missiles and drones raining on Qatar and Bahrain refineries. The new Supreme Leader's message came through loud and clear. The Gulf should remain closed. He is not bluffing. Iran's leverage here isn't conventional naval power. It's disruption. Naval mines, coastal anti-ship missiles like the Noor and Qaeda systems, swarm attacks by fast IRGC boats, drones shadowing tanker traffic. In a corridor this narrow, those tools don't need to sink fleets. They only need to make the strait too dangerous to insure. Now the artery is choking. The Strait of Hormuz at its narrowest point, with tanker lanes barely 2 miles across in each direction, normally carries roughly 20 million barrels of oil a day and around 1/5 of global LNG shipments. Even partial disruption here immediately shakes the global energy system. Since early March, tanker attacks and mines deployed, shipping traffic down 70% plus, captains refusing to sail. War risk insurance premiums that normally sit near 0.05% of a vessel's value have surged toward 3 to 5% or more in conflict zones, turning a single tanker voyage into a multi-million-dollar gamble. US Central Command has warned ports used by Iranian forces lose protected status. President Trump has called for a naval coalition, including China, France, Japan, UK, and South Korea. But so far, most allies have expressed reluctance or ruled out sending ships. Marines and the USS Tripoli are en route, but as of now, the strait remains a war zone. One mine, one drone, one miscalculation, and the world's energy supply line snaps, and the markets are screaming. Because once tanker traffic slows, the shock moves fast. From oil cargoes, to diesel supply, to freight costs, to food and manufacturing prices worldwide. Oil didn't just rise, it repriced the entire planet. because the market wasn't pricing a simple supply loss. It was pricing the risk that the world's most important energy corridor could remain unstable for weeks or months. Brent blew past $100 for the first time since 2022. Now sitting near $103 to $110 with a $20 plus risk premium still baked in. Remember 1973, 1979? Those were political. This one is physical, a choke point literally under fire. In response, the IEA triggered the biggest release in history, 400 million barrels from emergency stocks. The US alone dumping 172 million from the SPR. Japan another 80 million. That oil is now flowing into markets, but prices are still elevated because the physical artery is still shut. Iran's own exports, trapped, burning, irrelevant. This is bigger than oil. This is the entire system testing its breaking point. The war just entered a terrifying new phase. Direct strikes on energy infrastructure itself. Israel hit Iran's giant South Pass gas field and 𝗔𝗓𝘂𝘁 processing hub, up to 1/5 of Iran's gas capacity damaged. Hours later, Iran retaliated by hammering Qatar's Ras Laffan, the world's largest LNG terminal, causing extensive damage and fires. Strikes also hit Saudi, UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain facilities. And even a US F-35 was hit and forced to land after coming under suspected Iranian fire. Iran's military and security. Missile program gutted. Nuclear sites damaged. Proxies active. New hardline leader. The regime is now facing its greatest survival test yet. Supply chains. Gulf producers rerouting through pipelines at capacity limits. Asia scrambling. Shadow fleets adapting. Slower and far more expensive. Geopolitics. China imports roughly 10 to 11 million barrels of oil per day, with a large share historically sourced from Gulf producers moving through Hormuz. China, which normally takes large volumes of Gulf crude through the Strait, has already received at least 11.7 million barrels from Iran alone through shadow routes since February 28th. India, which used to pull 2 to 2.5 million barrels daily through the Strait, has now rerouted 70% of its imports to alternative paths. But hundreds of millions of barrels of Gulf-origin crude had already cleared the Strait in the days before the full lockdown, much of it bound straight for Chinese and Indian refineries. India has already begun escorting its own tankers, with the Indian Navy safely bringing LPG carriers Shivalik and Nanda Devi home. Beijing and New Delhi are racing to Russian supplies, while the shadow fleets try to sneak through whatever gaps remain. Russia benefits from higher prices. Saudi and UAE hedging, while their own facilities take hits. Europe and the US facing fresh inflation shock. Internal Iran. The December 2025 to January 2026 protests were only the prelude. War blackouts, fuel shortages, and crackdowns have silenced the streets, for now. The math is simple. When the world's most important artery is under fire, everything downstream breaks. Roughly 30% of globally traded crude oil and a major share of LNG exports originate in the Gulf region. Disrupt that flow, and the entire pricing structure of global energy shifts. Oil markets don't only react to supply loss, they react to reliability loss. The moment traders begin to doubt whether the next cargo will arrive. Food, fertilizer, manufacturing, currencies, bonds. So what does smart money do when the spark has already lit the fuse? It doesn't sit around waiting for the next headline. It moves before the next shock even lands. Energy majors with real diversified supply, LNG rerouting plays, defense contractors, maritime insurance winners, industrial metals, hard hedges. gold, short-duration cash, nuclear, uranium, grid stability, batteries, and the platforms watching real-time risk. For entrepreneurs, new markets are exploding right now. Logistics resilience, alternative corridors, geospatial intelligence, naval analytics, energy backup systems. Crisis doesn't only destroy, it reallocates power and capital at light speed. The next move will not be gradual. It will be fast, violent, algorithmic. By the time most people even understand what's happening, the smart money will already be sitting in the new positions. Because the world doesn't run on narratives anymore. It runs on energy. And right now, that energy is flowing through an active war zone. Stay alert, stay hedged, stay ahead. This is not financial advice. This is geopolitical math. And the bill just got a lot bigger.